Hello. All right, it is Nick Zangle coming to you live from somewhere in California here on this Wednesday, April 28th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. But I'm on a little early because it's an event that's going to start at 6. And thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully, people are joining in. And as you join in, make sure to say hi. I'm going to be saying a few things before we actually get into watching everything. But if you're watching the replay, there will be timestamps when things actually start or things actually come in. But I want to say hello to people as they come in. So if you're coming in, make sure to say hi and I will get to your comments. Let me make sure my thing is working on my end. So I go to my live stream. Okay, let's see. All right. So everything looks to be good. Let me know if you can hear me okay. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now with you. Let's see, that should work fine. For now, I'm going to keep it just smaller right here because nothing's really happening yet. Looks like they're just kind of waiting for things to happen. And let me know where you are coming from. Hello, Tennessee Volmom Doreen. So happy you could join me for this live. I'm excited. This is okay. So I guess I'll do my pre-event kind of ramp or notes. So like I said, there'll be timestamps in the description if you're watching the replay. I'm choosing to stream Newsmax from their YouTube channel because they show their main broadcast 24/7 on their YouTube. So that to me is the easiest thing because this is the first time I'm actually sharing my screen, and I will turn on the sound too. But and though they seem to be like they would be probably the least likely to get in or get me in trouble as far as the copyright side of things. But then again, this is an official address from the President of the United States. So I don't see how any news organization could get away with censoring people because it should be a speech that should be access to all people in supposedly the freest country in the world. So I don't think I should have a problem. So I thought it was the perfect time to share a screen with you and test this out. Also, this is my first time using StreamYard, which is what I'm using to broadcast to you from. It's very interesting because this speech was supposed to be originally, I think it was supposed to originally start at 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Pacific. So I actually started work an hour early so I could get off at 4 instead of 5. And I took a shorter lunch break too. But when I realized that it got moved back from the original time, I was kind of happy because I was able to test out StreamYard. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it or if I was going to have to do a live stream after the speech because if it was at 4, I didn't want to stream until 6. So it ended up being perfect. And actually, you probably might have seen me actually testing a few lives the past and a couple hours ago at this point. Where I was testing out this. I didn't send it to subscriber feeds or anything because I was just testing out to make sure my audio was good and all that kind of stuff. But yes, let me know what you think. Do you like this kind of thing? Let me know as we go along, and feel free to share any comments in the comment section as we're watching together. I'm going to share the audio from the YouTube channel as once they start the actual speech and the festivities, if you will. I'm going to try not to interrupt too much. Hopefully, it doesn't appear like this will be something that will be interrupted like they have done, like some news channels have done during the town halls during the election cycle. So I don't think we should have a problem with that. Of course, we can always pause, but I don't think I want to do that. So yeah, and I don't know. Some of my pre-thoughts on this. So they're not calling it a State of the Union. I know that it's normal for a new president to not do a State of the Union as they come into office, obviously, because he started in January. And so normally the State of the Union is end of January, early February. And so 2 weeks into your term, doesn't really make sense to have a State of the Union. And I know that happened with President Trump in his first term as well. So I don't think it was abnormal. I didn't get a chance to really look into if this is normal to have a joint session or an address to Congress at 100 days into your term, but I think the more access we have to the president as far as him addressing us as Americans or even people outside of America is good. And so no matter who's in office, I think this is always a good thing. And so they're not calling it a State of the Union, but I think it looks as we're watching the Vice President Kamala Harris and the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, as we see them out there, it looks very much like a State of the Union. So let me know what you think as far as what we should classify this as. What do you think is going to happen? Is it going to be like a State of the Union, or what do you think? Let me make sure. I was going to check something. I don't know what I was checking. I had my phone out for some reason. I don't know why. Let me think here. I'm going to put this is my earbud. I'm going to be able to hear the sound without it projecting out from my tablet, which is what I'm using here. Let me make sure I have I've said everything I needed to say before it starts. I think I got everything. So now we're just kind of waiting to see. Looks like they're going to start on time, which I'm happy about. I'm going to make the actual screen of the State of the Union or speech bigger once they actually start showing everything. I'm kind of waiting. So I want to know, how was everyone's day so far? I know it's middle of the week. It's almost May, which is crazy. I have my water here also. So if you see me sipping, I have my water. And as you join, let me know where you're joining from. I'm in California, like I said. It's actually pretty mild day. It's actually a perfect spring day. It was like mid 70s here, kind of breezy, but it's sunny, and it's only 6 o'clock here. So hopefully the sun stays up long enough to have some light. I have my ring light on, but you never know. Let me see here. Let's see. Tennessee Vol Mom says, busy. I had finals and board meetings. That is awesome. Hopefully your finals are almost over or are over. I know that feeling. Actually, last week I had an exam, not for school, but for licensing for my career. And okay, it looks like they're about to start. And I was exhausted after that day because I hadn't been in the swing of school for a long time, but that's good. That's awesome. So hopefully you get a little break. Let's go on here. Let me change my screen and let's go to here.
Enough, because there's going to be a quote progressive response to the president's address, which is I think like one of the first.
Let me know if you can hear
Democrats responding to the Democrat president.
The audio,
Kelly Sadler,
and let me know
Joe
if you need it
Conason,
higher.
Both of you, thank you for coming on. So I've been saying this evening that I really do feel like it's going to be like a NASCAR race. I cringe every time I watch this guy speak. So just for fun, we put together this little montage of his last big speech.
Let me know if it's too loud. Let me know if it's not loud enough. I tried to keep it at a middle ground so it's not blasting your ears out.
Oh, man, because it was good. Let's just hear, I sum it up this way. He flubbed his way.
Also, my hair is growing out. And I actually washed it today. So, okay, perfect. You can hear it. And if I speak over it right now, is it okay? Let me know.
And Rob Schmidt as well.
I actually like the way my hair actually felt today. I actually washed it and blow dried it and put a little bit of pomade and kind of fix it up. And it's getting to that point where it's long enough now that it's easier to work with. So it's kind of been in flux.
Unbelievable performance tonight. Steve,
okay, it looks like
you agree it's going to be an A+ when the media gets done with it, no matter what.
Vice President.
Right. Well, Grant, we certainly know that it's an incredibly low bar for Joe Biden to get over.
I'm going to turn it off until they turn that sound off until they. Okay, wait. What's happening?
Standpoint, from the standpoint of him, I don't think truly being in command of the executive branch. I will admit he's pretty good on props.
Is that a replay?
So my guess is things will go fine with him in a highly controlled, highly scripted
State of the Union address, which this kind of is.
Oh, I guess I went back.
We're only going to have about 200 people.
Okay, still not.
A crowd of about 1,600. All COVID, of course, even though we've seen a lot of people huddling real close, having conversations, maybe even shaking hands. You had the Vice President and the Speaker of the House do that a minute ago, as Steve Cortez just pointed out. In just a few moments here, really soon, here about a minute or two, we expect the Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, to present the president to this joint session of Congress. We just watched the cabinet come in. We've seen a number of other people come in as well. As we wait for Biden to begin his big speech, we're going to check in with our White House correspondent, Emerald Robinson, who is live on Capitol tonight. Emerald.
Hi, Rob. Well, it's for a speech that the White House has said is supposed to be unifying and bipartisan and bring Americans together.
Let's mute
it's
her.
already being quite polarizing before the president has even uttered one word. In the excerpts released from the White House a short time ago,
let's see what this
giving
says.
a few statements that the president is planned to make. It says that he will say that we've seen, quote unquote, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War, making a reference to the January 6th events here on Capitol Hill. Now,
So they're gonna
that's
bring
already
that up
gotten
again.
a lot of Republicans riled, saying more so than 9/11, the fact that 4 presidents have been assassinated since the Civil War, and suggesting that this will not unify Americans. Now, talking about the unity, Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina will be the one delivering the response for the Republicans after the address. He's expected to key in on what he will say is a lack of unity, asking essentially, why are we so divided in that we're supposed to be on this other side of the pandemic, suggesting that counter to what President Biden is expected to say, saying that he inherited this pandemic and the economic crisis. Tim Scott is expected to say he actually inherited an economy that was coming back, a pandemic that was on its way out, and that we should be in a better place than we are right now. So we're going to see that dichotomy between.
I mean, we can always do better, can't we? I think that's why I kind of.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're expecting Tim Scott to also talk.
That's kind of why I mean, I'll expand on why I kind of left the Republican Party, or at least I'm not registered with the party anymore, is because of that type of rhetoric. Like, we can always do better. I mean, we can always be doing better as far as economy goes, or whatever, or any of that stuff. So that's why I kind of sigh at that stuff now, even though I understand where it's coming from. Sure, it could be true that Biden inherited an economy that was roaring back, and that maybe he's doing some things that are stifling that growth, or that are making the growth not as strong as it could be. But I don't think you can be. I think it's hard to justify saying that you're unifying as far as the Republican rebuttal or whatever, and then attack the growth, or attack the job that Biden's doing economically, saying it's not good enough, even though it is coming back. So, and Tennessee Volmom, yes, this is categorized as a conservative channel. This was the channel that you might have heard of when Fox News on election night made that early call for Arizona, and it, like, myself included, it kind of threw us for a loop. We're like, what's going on? And long story short, at that moment, Newsmax basically became like the alternative, and just like their ratings skyrocketed. Of course, they've come down now since the election's over and things have kind of calmed down, and Trump is no longer a big figure in the on the news, or he's not as prominent because he's not president. But yes, it leans right, I would say, and leans conservative for sure. It's like kind of a Fox News and yeah, so that was that night, election night, when Arizona got called way early compared to other states, and a lot of viewers turned on Fox, and Newsmax became the alternative. But I think what happened was that person who was at the decision desk for Fox ended up being fired, because I guess it was revealed, and this, you have to double check this for me. It was revealed he, or whoever was at the decision desk, was kind of a Democratic operative or donor or whatever. So it looks like Joe's entering. So let me shut up.
I mean, usually that's usually a much more
So if you
jovial,
can,
big moment.
you don't have
It's a moment
to
we all
hear
kinda get
the
excited for if you
or agree
care
with
about
or
politics,
like the
but like
channel
so many
itself,
things
but this
right
is the
now
only
with
channel I
COVID
find that actually
so many
broadcasts
things with
their
this
entire
administration, frankly,
main
it just wasn't
broadcast
a very
for
overwhelming
free
moment.
on
It just kinda
YouTube
happened,
24/7, and so that's
not
why
this
I
big
chose it.
raucous
But
crowd. Mark Halperin, comment on that.
maybe if I do more of
Well,
these
look,
kind
this
of
is a
watch
very familiar
parties for
figure
other
to
events,
people in
I'll
this room,
rotate
right?
through the
So
main
he's more their
news
friend
media
of
just to kind of be
decades in
fair,
many
because
cases
I think
than he
it's
is a
fair.
celebrity or a rock star. You think
So
about
yeah.
our last couple presidents. George Bush, Bill Clinton came out of the governor's
And also a lot
mansion.
of the
When they
people
came to
from
that, they were
Newsmax,
new faces.
from
They
what I
were
understand, used
charismatic,
to
big
work at the
figures.
Foxes or the
Barack Obama had been in
MSNBCs
the
or
Senate, but just for a
other
little bit of
news
time, and
networks,
was
and
also
so
more of a national
this is
figure
kind of
than
a
a member of
refugee
Congress. Of
place
course,
for them. But
Donald Trump is a whole
there's that.
different breed of cat, and truly was a
Okay.
celebrity. So you got to go back to George Herbert Walker
I do
Bush
find it
to
interesting
find a
that he's,
president who
well,
is
I guess
more,
they're
again,
inside,
the
so it would
friend
make
of
more
these
sense for him
people
to be
than
wearing a
some
mask. I
figure
was
larger than life
curious
figure.
to
And I
see
think
how that
has
would
been part of
work,
it, but also, of
considering
course,
in
the chamber's
his,
not
I
very
think it was
full.
yesterday, in
And so
his
the energy
news
and the
conference
drama and the
announcing
excitement of
the
a packed
more
chamber.
lax
I've been in there
mask
for a couple
rules,
of these, and the
he
room
wore his
being
mask
packed to feel
outside to
special.
announce you don't have
This
to
is
wear your
just going to
mask
feel
outside if you're
different for him, no
vaccinated or
question.
by yourself. So I thought that was interesting.
And
But
here's
I
Nancy
have the
Pelosi.
high privilege and distinct honor to present to you the President of the United States.
there's the First Lady. There's, I guess, the main members of Congress. Not sure how they decided who would get to be in the room and who wouldn't.
Thank you.
Let me know if you know who got to be in and who didn't, or how they chose
Good to
that.
be back. Mitch and Chuck will understand it's good to be almost home. Down the hall. Anyway, thank you all. Madam Speaker, Madam Vice President. No president has ever said those words from this podium. No president has ever said those words. And it's about time. First Lady, I'm her husband. Second Gentleman, Chief Justice, members of the United States Congress and the Cabinet, distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. While the setting tonight is familiar, this gathering is just a little bit different. A reminder of the extraordinary times we're in. Throughout our history, presidents have come to this chamber to speak to Congress, to the nation, and to the world, to declare war, to celebrate peace, to announce new plans and possibilities. Tonight, I come to talk about crisis and opportunity, about rebuilding the nation, revitalizing our democracy, and winning the future for America. I stand here tonight, one day shy of the 100th day of my administration. 100 days since I took the oath of office and lifted my hand off our family Bible and inherited a nation, we all did, that was in crisis. The worst pandemic in a century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. Now, after just 100 days, I can report to the nation, America is on the move again. Turning peril into possibility, crisis to opportunity, setbacks into strength. We all know life can knock us down, but in America, we never, ever, ever stay down. Americans always get up. Today, that's what we're doing.
That's true.
America's rising anew, choosing hope over fear, truth over lies, and light over darkness. After 100 days of rescue and renewal, America's ready for a takeoff, in my view. We're working again, dreaming again, discovering again, and leading the world again. We have shown each other and the world that there's no quit in America, none. 100 days ago, America's house was on fire. We had to act. And thanks to the extraordinary leadership of Speaker Pelosi, Majority Leader Schumer, and the overwhelming support of the American people, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, we did act. Together, we passed the American Rescue Plan, one of the most consequential rescue packages in American history. We're already seeing the results.
I think I understand that you're trying to milk the January 6th incident, but I don't know if that was the reason you passed the package.
After I promised we'd get 100 million COVID-19 vaccine shots into people's arms in 100 days, we will have provided over 220 million COVID shots in those 100 days. Thanks to all the help of all of you. We're marshaling, with your help, everyone's help, we're marshaling every federal resource. We've gotten vaccines to nearly 40,000 pharmacies and over 700 community health centers where the poorest of the poor can be reached. We're setting up community vaccination sites, developing mobile units to get to hard-to-reach communities. Today, 90% of Americans now live within 5 miles of a vaccination site.
That is amazing.
Everyone over the age of 16, everyone is now eligible to get vaccinated right now, right away. Go get vaccinated, America. Go and get the vaccination. They're available.
Joe, sorry, that doesn't help. That doesn't sway my opinion.
When I was sworn in on January 20th, less than 1% of the seniors in America are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. 100 days later, 70% of seniors in America over 65 are protected, fully protected.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, if you want to get that, I'm all on board. But whatever you want to do with your body, I am all aboard it. But Joe looking at me like that, I don't know if that helps me. But
more than half of all the adults in America,
it's not neither here nor
have
there.
gotten at least one shot. A mass vaccination center in Glendale, Arizona. I asked the nurse, I said, "What's it like?" She looked at me and she said, "It's like every shot is giving a dose of hope," is her phrase, a dose of hope. A dose of hope for an educator in Florida was a child suffering from autoimmune disease.
That's my reasoning right now is, you know what, I'm not even near a high risk group, so I would rather have someone who wants it and needs it to have it right now. So I am all good for the moment.
Cried out of joy.
But I'm happy that people in my life are getting it if they want it. And
parents,
it's awesome. So
seeing the smiles on the kids' faces for those who are able to go back to school because the teachers and school bus drivers and cafeteria workers have been vaccinated. Grandparents hugging their children and grandchildren instead of pressing hands against the window to say goodbye. Mean everything. Those things mean everything. You know, there's still, you all know it. You know it better than any group of Americans. There's still more work to do to beat this virus. We can't let our guard down. But tonight, I can say, because of you, the American people, our progress these past 100 days against one of the worst pandemics in history has been one of the greatest logistical achievements this country's ever seen. What else have we done in those first 100 days? We kept our commitment, Democrats and Republicans, of sending $1,400 rescue checks to 85% of American households. We've already sent more than 160 million checks out the door. It's making a difference. You all know it when you go home. For many people, it's making all the difference in the world. a single mom in Texas who wrote me. She said she couldn't work, but she said the relief check put food on the table and saved her and her son from eviction from their apartment. A grandmother in Virginia who told me
That's awesome.
she
Doreen.
immediately took her
Yeah,
granddaughter
I mean,
to the eye
unfortunate
doctor.
that people are passing. But
Something she said she put off for months
that's
because
cool
she
that
didn't
your
have the money.
nonprofit was able to help.
One of the defining images, at least from my perspective in this crisis.
In case anyone's not in the chat, Doreen,
Cars
Tennessee Bob Mom said, my
lined up.
nonprofit has paid for funerals
lined
of
up
at
for
least 12
miles.
people who have died of COVID this
And
past year.
Not people just barely able to start those cars, nice cars, lined up for miles, waiting for a box of food to be put in their trunk. I don't know about you, but I didn't ever think I'd see that in America. And all of this is through no fault of their own.
No, it was the response to the pandemic was what caused this, not necessarily
the rescue plan
the virus itself.
Is delivering food and nutrition assistance to millions of Americans facing hunger. And hunger's down sharply already.
And unfortunately, it's not sustainable to live off of
the American people.
checks
I want to make sure they understand
that are being sent by the government, but
keeping people from
I support it when it was an emergency. But now
providing loans to
we need to
small
open
businesses that reopen and keep their employees on the job. During these 100 days, an additional 800,000 Americans enrolled in the Affordable Care Act when I established a special sign-up period to do that. 800,000 in that period. We're making one of the largest one-time ever investments, ever, in improving health care for veterans. Critical investments to address the opioid crisis. And maybe most importantly, thanks to the American Rescue Plan, we're on track to cut child poverty in America in half this year. And in the process, while this was all going on, the economy created more than 1,300,000 new jobs in 100 days. More jobs in the first 100 days than any president on record. The International Monetary Fund
I know how that rebuttal will go for the Republicans as far as jobs.
Our economy will grow at a rate of more than 6% this year. That will be the fastest pace of economic growth in this country in nearly 4 decades. America's moving forward, but we can't stop now. We're in competition with China and other countries to win the 21st century. We're at a great inflection point in history. We have to do more than just build back better. We have to build back better. We have to compete more strenuously than we have. Throughout our history, if you think about it, public investment in infrastructure has literally transformed America, our attitudes as well as our opportunities. The Transcontinental Railroad, the interstate highways, united 2 oceans and brought a totally new age of progress to the United States of America.
I'm writing down notes, so when this is over,
Universal
I can say
public
a few more
schools
things
and college
without
aid
interrupting.
Opened wide the doors of opportunity. Scientific breakthroughs took us to the moon. Now we're on Mars, discovering vaccines, gave us the internet, and so much more. These are investments we made together as one country.
I don't know if you meant to say it like that.
Only the government was in a position to make. Time and again, they propel us into the future. That's why I proposed the American Jobs Plan.
Hopefully my fridge isn't too loud.
Once-in-a-generation investment in America itself.
I try to silence it when
This is
I'm
the largest
recording,
jobs
but
plan since World War II.
I don't want to turn it off for
Creates
too long.
jobs to upgrade our transportation infrastructure. Jobs modernizing our roads, bridges, highways. Jobs building ports and airports, rail corridors, transit lines.
Roads and bridges.
It's clean water.
That's my area.
Up to 10 million homes in America and more than 400,000
Okay, good. I think I insulated my sound enough and
pipes with lead in them, including
my
drinking
microphone's
water.
facing the right way. So hopefully.
A clear and present danger to our children's health. American Jobs Plan creates jobs replacing 100% of the nation's lead pipes and service lines, so every American can drink clean water.
Including Flint, Michigan?
And the process will create thousands and thousands of good-paying jobs. It creates jobs connecting every American with high-speed internet, including 35%.
Did you see the story about Mayor
America
Pete? Or I guess who's now Secretary Pete.
It's going to help our kids.
When he was riding his bike
in the
to
21st century economy.
the
And I'm asking
cabinet meeting, but he was driven in a gas-powered vehicle, almost to the point of the media. Then he rode his bike the rest of the way.
Creates jobs,
I was like,
building a modern
yikes.
power grid. Our grids are vulnerable to storms, hacks, catastrophic failures, with
Very true.
tragic results, as we saw in Texas and elsewhere during the winter storms.
Let's just say the water system is the easiest.
Lay thousands of miles of transmission lines needed
Not to give
build
anyone ideas, but that's the easiest way to
fully clean grid.
do damage. Let's just say
We can
that.
do that.
Which is scary. Which is why water treatment facilities and water
Look.
resources, they have to be very,
American jobs
very high security, and you have
help
to
millions of people
have
get
a lot
back
of
to their jobs and back to
layers
their careers.
to even get close to those.
2 million women have dropped out of the workforce during
That's
this
cool.
pandemic. 2 million.
During that, your son worked for,
And too often because they
I'm
couldn't
guessing
get
you're
the care
saying
they
Mayor
needed
Pete during the primary.
to care for their
cool.
child or care for an elderly parent who needs help.
There's Senator Manchin, I believe,
800,000
Who's
families
ca-
are on the
causing quite the
Medicare
stir
waiting
in
list
Congress.
right now to get home care for their aging parent or loved one with disability. If you think it's not important, check out in your own district, Democrat or Republican. Democrat or
Nice.
Republican
In Iowa.
voters.
Cool.
Their great concern, almost as much as their children, is taking care of an
I'm guessing
elderly
you're
loved
referring
one
to
who
Manchin
can't be left
during.
alone.
Yeah, if you are, he's
Medicaid
definitely true.
contemplated it,
But I think it's
this
good.
plan's gonna help
I think
those
it's good
families and
to
create
have
jobs
someone
for our
kind of
caregivers
a little
with better wages and better
little uneasy
benefits.
to kind of make sure
Continue
everyone's on their
recycled
toes
growth.
and not just following
For too
along party
long,
lines
we've
just
failed
because.
to use the
So
most important word
hopefully it'll be good.
when it comes to meeting the climate crisis. Jobs. Jobs. Jobs.
Yes, open up. Every governor and every person in power. Open your economies. Let people decide for themselves if they want to go out or not,
For
or
me,
whatever they want to
when
do.
I think climate change, I think jobs. American Jobs Plan will put engineers and construction workers to work building more energy efficient buildings and homes.
Hopefully, what's best for him is
Electrical work,
based on
IBEW members installing
what his constituents
500,000
voted for
charging
him
stations along
for,
our
or at least the ones that
highways.
voted for him.
So we can own,
So hopefully,
the electric car market.
I think at this point it's clear a lot of the last
Farmers planting
restrictions
cover
that are
crops so they
being
can
held
reduce the
on
carbon
for
dioxide
dear
in the air
life
and get
is
paid for doing
more
it.
people in power not wanting to give
Look.
up some of the power that they've accrued over the past year.
Think about it.
Whether those
There is simply
restrictions
no
are
reason why the
still
blades for wind turbines can't be
effective
built in
or not, or
Pittsburgh instead of Beijing.
needed, that's kind of the
No
question.
reason. None. No reason. So, folks, there's no reason why American workers can't lead the world in the production of electric vehicles and batteries. I mean, there is no reason.
Well,
Capacity.
the place, California, where I am, where Tesla was the last remaining car manufacturer, left because of
American
policies.
Jobs Plan is going to
And
create
we're
millions of good-paying
a state
jobs,
known
jobs
for
Americans
progressive
can raise a
policies, so
family on.
there
As
is a
my dad would
conflict
then
there
say,
as far as
with a little
policy
breathing.
of the party that wants to, or people that want to
All the
do
investments
clean
in American
energy,
Jobs
and
Plan will be guided
the
by
reality
one
of
principle.
that
Buy
space needed to be able
American.
to get to that. So
Buy
that's a big
American.
issue right now.
And I might note parenthetically That does not violate any trade agreement. It's been the law since the 30s. Buy American. American tax dollars are going to be used to buy American products made in America to create American jobs. That's the way it's supposed to be, and it will be in this administration.
Sounds like America first from President Trump, which I'm all on board. If Biden wants to be America first and adopt policies of Trump America first policy, I'm all on board.
People.
I don't care who's saying it.
Ability to give exemptions has been strenuously limited. It will be American products. Now, I know some of you at home are wondering whether these jobs are for you. So many of you, so many of the folks I grew up with feel left behind, forgotten, in an economy that's so rapidly changing. It's frightening. I want to speak directly to you.
Okay.
Because you think about it.
I'm listening.
That's what people are most worried about. Can I fit in? Independent experts estimate the American Jobs Plan will add millions of jobs and trillions of dollars to economic growth in the years to come. It is a 8-year program. These are good paying jobs that can't be outsourced. Nearly 90% of the infrastructure jobs created in the American Jobs Plan do not require a college degree.
That's good. I like that.
75% don't require an associate's degree.
Okay.
The American Jobs Plan is a blue-collar blueprint to build America. That's what it is.
As long as the money's actually going to that. The problem always happens where the money starts going in people's pockets and doesn't actually go to the what's it's supposed to.
Something I've always said in this chamber and the other. Good guys and women on Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
Oh, don't start with the unions, Joe.
So that's why I'm calling on Congress to pass Protect the Right to Organize Act, the PRO Act, and send it to my desk so we can support the right to unionize.
The right to choose to unionize, not
And by the way,
not forcing people.
while you're thinking about sending things to my desk, let's raise the minimum wage to $15.
Bad idea.
No
That's one thing I don't agree with.
No one working 40 hours a week. No one working 40 hours a week should live below the poverty line.
Reduce
We need
taxes,
to
reduce
ensure greater
spending.
equity and opportunity for women. And while we're doing this, let's get the Paycheck Fairness Act to my desk as well. Equal pay. It's been much too long. And if you wonder whether it's too long, look behind me.
Well,
And finally, American Jobs Plan will be the biggest increase in non-defense research and development on record. We'll see more technological change, and some of you know more about this than I do. We'll see more technological change in the next 10 years than we saw in the last 50. That's how rapidly.
well, I'll just say California, we already just went to $15
more
minimum
is
wage
changing.
just 2 months ago, I guess 3 months
And we're
ago. So
falling behind
California
the
won't
competition
change
with the rest of the
anything,
world.
but for those small towns
Decades ago,
that rely
we
on
used to invest
and are
2%
adjusted
of our
for
gross
their
domestic
wages
product
there,
in America.
that $15 is going
2%
to
of our
be
gross domestic
quite
product
the
in research and development. Today,
quite the change. And
Mr. Secretary,
unfortunately,
that's less
that just means
than
goods are going to be
1%.
expensive. That's just how it is.
China
Sorry.
and other countries
Because
are
I
closing in
know
fast.
from my economic
We have to
learning
develop
is that labor
and
is the
dominate the
biggest
products and technologies of
expense
the
as far
future.
as markups of
Advanced batteries,
the products normally.
biotechnology.
As far as
Computer
during
chips,
your question of aren't
clean
electric
energy.
cars very expensive?
The Secretary of Defense
Yeah,
can
I think
tell
they're
you,
coming down now because
and
more
those of you
people are
on
buying them.
work in
So
national security issues
I
now,
think they are coming down in price,
Defense
and of course, the
Department
more
has an
demand there
agency
is,
called DARPA,
and the supply, if it can
the
keep up,
Defense
hopefully it'll
Advanced Research
ramp up
Project
production and
Agency.
bring down the price. But
The people who set up before I came here, and that's been a long time ago, to develop breakthroughs
there's like a
that
fire truck going
enhance
by.
our national security. That's their only job.
Doreen says, my family was
And it's a
union way back
semi-separate agency.
to my
It's under the
great
Defense
grandfather. Gangster. LOL gangster. LOL. Yeah.
It's led to everything
I just said
from
the
discovery
union
of the
comment because
internet,
his one of his first executive
GPS,
orders
and
was
so much more.
was
It's
basically
enhanced our security.
killing pipeline
The National Institute of
thing
Health,
in
the NIH, I believe,
wherever it was, and that was a whole bunch of union jobs that went out the
a
door.
similar
So,
advanced research
and
projects agency
the
for health.
climate policies, a lot of them affect union jobs negatively. So
Here's what it
I
would
understand
do.
he wants to be pro-union, but unfortunately,
It would
some
have
of the
a
other
singular
policies
purpose:
conflict with that.
develop breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, and cancer. I'll still never forget when we passed the cancer proposal in the last year as vice president. Almost $9 million going to NIH. And they've excused the point of personal privilege. I'll never forget you standing, Mitch, and saying, name it after my deceased son. It meant a lot.
Let me make sure I'm not going to
So many of us
run out of battery. I don't
have
think
deceased
so.
sons, daughters, and relatives who died of cancer. I can think of no more worthy investment. I know of nothing that is more bipartisan. So let's end cancer as we know it. It's within our power. It's within our power to do it.
Yes, I think we can all agree on that.
Investments in jobs and
Yeah,
infrastructure
and I think
like the ones we're talking
if you want to
about
be a union, I think you
have
should be
often
able
had
to
bipartisan
100%
support in
agree.
the
And I think
past.
that's one thing we probably
Vice
agree
President
on. I just
Harris
believe in
and I met regularly
having the
in the
choice
Oval
to
Office
join
with
it or
Democrats
not.
and
So,
Republicans to
yeah,
discuss the
if
jobs
it
plan.
helps you, totally.
And I applaud a group of Republican senators who just put forward their own proposal. So let's get to work. I wanted to lay out before the Congress my plan before we got into the deep discussions. I'd like to meet with those who have ideas that are different, they think are better. I welcome those ideas. But the rest of the world is not waiting for us. I just want to be clear. From my perspective, doing nothing
Yep,
is not an
100%
option.
Doreen. I completely agree. We believe in liberty, freedom of choice. Yes, yes, yes.
Look, we can't be so busy competing with one another that we forget the competition that we have with the rest of the world to win the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
Secretary Blinken can tell you, I spent a lot of time with President Xi. Traveled over 17,000 miles with him. Spent, they tell me, over 24 hours in private discussions with him. When he
What'd
called
you
to
say in
congratulate
those?
him, we had a 2-hour discussion. He's deadly earnest
Deadly.
about becoming the most significant, consequential nation in the world. He and others, autocrats, think that democracy can't compete in the 21st century with democracies because it takes too long to get consensus. To win that competition for the future, in my view, we also need to make a once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children. That's why I've introduced the American Families Plan tonight, which addresses 4 of the biggest challenges facing American families and in turn America. First is access to good education. When this nation made 12 years of public education universal in the last century, it made us the best educated, best prepared nation in the world. It's, I believe, the overwhelming reason that propelled us to where we got in the 20th century. But the world's caught up or catching up.
Hopefully my
We're not
tablet
waiting.
doesn't overheat. If
I would
this
say
stream gets
parenthetically,
cut off somehow,
if we were sitting
that'll
down
be
and
why.
set a
So hopefully
bipartisan committee
everything's
together and said,
good. But,
okay, we're going to decide what we do in terms of government providing for free education. I wonder whether we'd think, as we did in the 20th century, that 12 years is enough in the 21st century. I doubt it. 12 years is no longer enough today to compete with the rest of the world in the 21st century. That's why my American Families Plan guarantees 4 additional years of public education for every person in America, starting as early as we can. The great universities in this country have conducted studies of the last 10 years that shows that adding 2 years of universal high-quality preschool for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old, no matter what background they come from, puts them in the position to be able to compete all the way through 12 years and increases exponentially their prospect of graduating and going on beyond graduation. Research shows when a young child goes to school, not daycare, they're far more likely to graduate from high school and go to college or something after high school. When you add 2 years of free community college on top of that, you begin to change the dynamic.
Who's paying for this? That's my
We
question.
can do that. And we'll increase Pell Grants and invest in historical Black colleges and universities, tribal colleges, minority-serving institutions. The reason is they don't have the endowments, but their students are just as capable of learning about cybersecurity, just as capable of learning about metallurgy, all the things that are going on that provide those jobs of the future. Jill is a community college professor who teaches today as First Lady. She's long said,
I do think that's cool that she continues to teach as she's been Second Lady and First Lady. I think that's pretty cool.
she's long,
It'd be interesting to be in her class. I wonder what that would be like if there's Secret Service around and like if it feels normal or if it's a weird classroom environment. I don't know. It'd be interesting.
if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Joe, any country that out-educates us is going to outcompete us. She'll be deeply involved in leading this effort. Thank you, Jill. Second thing we need, American Families Plan will provide access to quality, affordable childcare. We guarantee we're not proposing in legislation, we guarantee that low and middle income families will pay no more than 7% of their income for high quality care for children up to the age of 5. The most hard pressed working families won't have to spend a dime. Third, the American Families Plan will finally provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave and medical leave, family medical leave.
Okay.
We're one of the few industrial countries in the world. No one should have to choose between a job and a paycheck or taking care of themselves and their loved ones or parent or spouse or child. And fourth, the American Family Plan puts directly into the pockets of millions of Americans. In March, we expanded the tax credit for every child in a family, up to $3,000 per child if they're under 6 years of age. Over 6 years of age, and $3,600 for children over 6 years of age. With 2 parents, 2 kids, that's $7,200 in the pockets to help take care of your family.
Yes, we like
And
tax
that
credits.
will help more than 65 million children and help cut child care poverty in half. And we can afford it. So we did that in the last piece of legislation we passed. But let's extend that child care tax credit at least through the end of 2025.
2025.
The American Rescue Plan lowered health care premiums for 9 million Americans who buy their coverage under the Affordable Care Act. I know that's really popular this side of the aisle. But let's make that provision permanent so their premiums don't go back up.
As far as the Dr. Joe Biden comment, yeah, I thought it was stupid that they were saying that.
In addition to my family's plan, I'm
Getting mad at her for using doctor. I mean, she has a PhD. She's not a medical doctor, but that doesn't mean she's not a doctor. I had professors that were doctors
the Affordable Care Act has been a lifeline for millions of Americans,
engineering
protecting
college,
people
and we
with
call them
pre-existing
doctors.
conditions,
So
protecting
I
women's
don't
health.
get it.
And the pandemic has demonstrated how badly it's needed. Let's lower deductibles for working families on the Affordable Care Act. And let's lower prescription drug costs. We know how to do this.
Yes, another thing Trump was
The last
part
president
of.
had that as an objective. We all know how outrageously expensive drugs are in America. In fact, we pay the highest prescription drug prices of anywhere in the world,
Yeah, and
right here in America.
if you get that PhD and you do
Nearly
your
3 times
thesis or whatever it's called, or
the
your,
same drug,
I don't know what the
3
term is,
times
and you earn that title, I think you should
other
by all
countries
means
pay.
use it. When I
We have to
get
change
my
that, and we
license for
can.
my engineering, I am
Let's do what we
definitely
talked
putting
about for all the years I was down
the
here
letters
in
after
this
mine as far as professionally.
Congress.
Don't know if I would use it
Let's give Medicare the
in
power
real
to
life
save
because my
hundreds
profession,
of
there's not
billions
really like a
by
doctor type
negotiating
title
lower
at the
drug
front,
prescription
but
prices.
if I was, I would use it for sure.
By the way, it won't just help people on Medicare. Lower prescription drug costs for everyone. And the money we save, which is billions of dollars, can go to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and expand Medicare coverage benefits it's within our power to do it. Let's do it now.
Question is, how are you going to do it? Are you going to follow what kind of President Trump did, which is create more competition, or you're going to just force people to not, or force companies to lower their prices?
This is all about a simple premise. Health care should be a right, not a privilege in America. So,
what about the emergency room?
how do we pay for my jobs and family plans?
Is that free,
I
or
made
is
it
that
clear
something accessible to
We can
everyone?
do it
Or
without increasing the deficit.
how do we categorize
Let's
that?
start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share. Get their fair share.
Sounds good in theory, yes. But we know that there's people who are going to try to get around it no matter what.
Sometimes I have arguments with my friends in the Democratic Party. I think you should be able to become a billionaire and a millionaire, but pay your fair share. A recent study shows that 55 of the nation's biggest corporations paid zero federal tax last year. Those 55 corporations made in excess of $40 billion in profit.
How did they get away with it? Fix the
A lot of
loopholes.
companies also evade taxes through tax havens in Switzerland and Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. And they benefit from tax loopholes and deductions for offshoring jobs and shifting
Okay, Congress,
profits
do your job and
overseas.
fix the loopholes.
It's not right.
Everyone in
We're going to
Congress.
reform corporate taxes so they pay their fair share and help pay for the public investments their businesses will benefit from as well.
Yeah, fix the loopholes. Pay your fair share, yes. Of course.
We're going to reward work, not just wealth. We take the top tax bracket for the wealthiest 1% of Americans, those making over $400,000 or more, back up to where it was when George W. Bush was president, when he started, 39.6%. That's where it was when George W. was president. We're going to get rid of the loopholes, allow Americans to make more than $1 million a year and pay a lower tax rate on their capital gains than Americans who receive a paycheck.
Yes, but
We're only going to
just
affect
you're gonna have to
3/10
answer
of
to those
1%
people
of
who
all
maybe lose
Americans
their
by that
jobs,
action. 3/10 of 1%.
or have to find another job in
And
a
the
different
IRS is
sector
gonna crack
because of
down
that.
on millionaires and billionaires who
take
cheat on their
from
taxes.
people. So
It's
there is a give and a
estimated
take. Sounds
be
great,
billions
but
of
there is
dollars
part
by
of it that's
think
gonna.
tanks are left, right, and center.
There is some negatives to it, unfortunately.
I'm not looking to punish anybody, but I will not add a tax burden, additional tax burden to the middle class in this country. They're already paying enough.
That's true.
I believe what I propose is fair, fiscally responsible, and it raises revenue to pay for the plans I propose will create millions of jobs that will grow the economy.
The problem is
and
some people
enhance
might be forced out of
the
their current
financial
job, even
standing
if
of
they
the
like
country.
it, and have to find a job
When you
in
hear
those
someone
new
say they don't want to raise
sectors.
taxes on the
So,
wealthiest 1%, or
hello,
corporate
UC
America,
Boss number 277.
ask them,
Thanks for coming in.
whose taxes you want to raise?
We're about 45 minutes into the speech.
Instead,
Not sure how long it's going to go, though.
who's they going to cut? Look, the big tax cut of 2017. Remember, it was supposed to pay for itself. That was how it was sold. And generate vast economic growth. Instead, it added $2 trillion to the deficit. It was a huge windfall for corporate America.
But was the deficit
Those at the very
really
top. Instead of
going
using
down
the tax
before
savings to raise
that?
wages and
That's the
invest in
problem. Like,
research and development, it
to
poured billions of dollars
fix the
into
deficit
pockets of
from a
CEOs.
general perspective, you have to have
In fact,
lower
the pay
spending
gap between CEOs and their workers
and the same
is
tax
now
rate,
among the largest in
or
history.
lower the
According
spending
to
more
one
than lowering the
study,
tax
CEOs
rate.
make
So
320 times
that's just the
average worker
reality.
in
I
a
mean, it's just,
corporation makes.
I know
Used to
it's
be in
not
below
pretty and
100.
doesn't sound great.
Pandemic has only
I don't know.
made things worse. 20 million Americans lost their job in the pandemic.
Oh, don't worry, UC Boss. See you later.
Working
There's going to be a
middle-class
replay, and I'll
Americans.
put timestamps
At the
down
same
below as
time,
far as when the actual speech
roughly
starts, and then
650 billionaires
do
in
some
America
wrap-up thoughts of mine
saw their
after
net worth
he's done.
increase by more than $1 trillion in the same exact period. Let me say it again. 650 people increased their wealth by more than $1 trillion during this pandemic. And they're now worth more than $4 trillion.
Right, that's because the response
My fellow Americans,
and the mandates and the lockdowns
Trickle
forced
down.
people to not
trickle-down
to have to use
economics
those
has never
services that
worked.
those
It's
650
time to
people,
grow the
whoever
economy from the bottom
created,
and the
because they
middle
filled
out.
a hole and a gap in the market. So I don't know. It's not necessarily because we really wanted to. We were kind of forced into the position to fund
There's a
or put
broad
money in
consensus
people's
of
pockets
economists
like
left, right,
Amazon.
and center,
So
and they agree what I'm proposing will help create millions of jobs and generate historic economic growth. These are among the highest values investments we can make as a nation. I've often said our greatest strength is the power of our example, not just the example of our power. In my conversations with world leaders, and I've spoken to over 38, 40 of them now, I've made it known.
not
that
just the
America's
power
back.
of
You know
our
what they
example,
say?
but the example
Comment
of
I
our
hear most of all
power.
from them. So they say, we see America's back, but for how long? But for how long?
As long as we stay open and keep
My fellow
reopening.
Americans, we have to show not just that we're back, but we're back to stay.
Uh-oh,
And
UC
that
Boss
we
is
aren't
starting
going
a
to
war.
go alone.
Tennessee Vol versus Roll Tide.
We're going to do it by leading with our allies. No
Sports, one of the few
nation
areas we can
deal with
disagree
all
and
the
be
crises of
passionate
our
without
time, from
it
terrorism,
ruining our
nuclear
lives.
proliferation, mass migration, cybersecurity, climate change, as well as experiencing what we're experiencing now, pandemics. There's no wall high enough to keep any virus out.
True, which is
And
why we
our
shouldn't
own
be
vaccine supply, as
letting
it grows,
COVID positive
to meet
people
our needs,
at the border into America
and
if you're really
we're meeting
worried about
them.
it.
Will become an arsenal for vaccines for other countries, just as America is an arsenal for democracy for the world. And a
Can't have it both
consequence
ways,
influence the world.
unfortunately.
But every American will have access before that occurs. Every American will have access to be fully covered by COVID-19 from the vaccines we have. Look, the climate crisis is not our fight alone, it's a global fight. The United States accounts, as all of you know, less than 15% of carbon emissions. The rest of the world accounts for 85%.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I kept my commitment to rejoin the Paris Accord, because if we do everything perfectly, it's not going to only matter. I kept my commitment to convene
So why do
a
we need to
summit right here
join?
in America.
Why can't we just encourage
with all
people
the
to,
major economies
or
of the
countries to
world.
do it on their own? Why do
China,
we have to
Russia,
fund it
India, European Union,
or be a part of that?
I said I'd do it in
That's
my
the
first
thing I
100
don't
days.
quite get.
I want to be very blunt about it. I had my attempt was to make sure that the world could see there was a consensus that we are at an inflection point in history. The consensus is if we act to save the planet, we can create millions of jobs and economic growth and opportunity to raise the standard of living amongst everyone
So it's
around
not
the
about
world.
the environment. The environment is used to create jobs and to transform the economy and to force people
every
into
nation said, even the ones that aren't doing
your way of doing things. That's kind of what I take away from it.
The investments I propose tonight also advance the foreign policy, in my view, that benefits the middle class. That means making sure every nation plays by the same rules in the global economy, including China. In my discussions with President Xi, I told him, we welcome the competition. We're not looking for conflict, but I made absolutely clear that we will defend America's interest across the board.
Good.
America will stand up to unfair trade practices that undercut American workers and American industries, like subsidies from state to state-owned operations and enterprises, and the theft of American technology intellectual property.
Yep.
I also told President Xi that we'll maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, just as we do with NATO and Europe. Not to start a conflict, but to prevent one.
Okay, keep your promise. UC Boss says he doesn't have a mask on. Oh, don't even start. Yeah, I know. It's kind of interesting. Obviously, it would be hard to hear him, but it is kind of funny that he has to take it off inside. So is he above the law? I don't know. Above the rules? I don't know.
And I pointed out to him,
and if you're vaccinated,
American president,
why do you have to wear the mask still, right?
When basic human rights are being so blatantly violated. An American president has to represent the essence of what our country stands for. America is an idea.
Kamala has her eye on
the
someone.
Most unique idea in history. We are created, all of us equal. It's who we are. And we cannot walk away from that principle. And in fact, say we're dealing with the American idea.
Well,
with regard to Russia,
the problem is
I know it can
want to push equity, which is
made very clear to Putin,
not compatible with equality. So I get,
escalation. But their actions will have consequences. They turn out to be true, and turned out to be true. So I responded directly and proportionally to Russia's interference in our elections and the cyber attacks on our government and our business. They did both of these things. And I told them we would respond, and we have. We can also cooperate when it's our mutual interest. We did it when we extended the New START Treaty on nuclear arms, and we're working to do it on climate change. But he understands we will respond. On Iran and North Korea, nuclear programs that present serious threats to American security and the security of the world. We're going to be working closely with our allies to address threats posed by both of these countries through diplomacy as well as stern deterrence. And American leadership means ending the forever war in Afghanistan. We have.
Yep. I agree. Bring our troops home. Okay, bye, Doreen. Good luck studying for your second master's, and forward to hearing your thoughts as they come along as you watch the replay. Thanks for coming in here.
Serving in a war zone. Today, we have service members serving in the same war zone as their parents did. We have service members in Afghanistan who are not yet born on 9/11.
That's crazy.
The war in Afghanistan, as we remember the debates here, were never meant to be multi-generational undertakings of nation building.
Now, if we get out of this war, let's not start another one or engage in another one. How about that?
Us on 9/11.
Let's bring our troops home.
And we said we would follow Osama bin Laden to the gates of hell to do it. If you've been in the upper Konar Valley, you've kind of seen the gates of hell. And we delivered justice to bin Laden. We degraded the terror threat of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. And after 20 years of valor, and sacrifice, it's time to bring those troops home.
Yes, yes, yes.
Look,
hopefully to defend the homeland and prevent
Even as we do, we'll
terrorists from
maintain
coming.
over the horizon capacity to suppress future threats to the homeland. Make no mistake, in 20 years, terrorism has metastasized. The threat has evolved way beyond Afghanistan. Those of you in the intelligence committees, the foreign relations committee, defense committees.
Why don't you like his
You
voice,
know
you see,
well.
boss?
We have to remain vigilant against the threats to the United States wherever they come from. Al-Qaeda and ISIS are in Yemen, Syria, Somalia, other places in Africa, in the Middle East, and beyond.
And in
we won't
America.
ignore what our intelligence agencies have determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism.
Here we
We're
go.
not going to ignore that either. My fellow Americans, look, we have to come together to heal the soul of this nation. It was nearly a year ago before her father's funeral when I spoke with Gianna Floyd, George Floyd's young daughter. She's a little tyke, so I was kneeling down to talk to her so I could look her in the eye. She looked at me, she said, "My daddy changed the world." Well, after the conviction of George Floyd's murderer, we can see how right she was if we have the courage to act as a Congress. We've all seen the knee of injustice on the neck of Black Americans. Now's our opportunity to make some real progress. The vast majority of men and women wearing a uniform and a badge serve our communities, and they serve them honorably. I know them. I know they want...
But you want to defund them. Why is she standing there clapping, Maxine? She's the one that wanted protesters to go harder and go after people outside the courtroom. Like,
I know they want to help meet this moment as well. My fellow Americans, we have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, to root out systemic racism in our criminal justice system, and to enact police reform in George Floyd's name that passed the House already. I know Republicans have their own ideas and are engaged in a very productive discussions with Democrats in the Senate.
yes, and they introduced a
We need to
bill
work
last
together
year,
and find a consensus.
right after George Floyd,
Let's get
and
it done next
the
month.
Democrats
By the
denied
first
it or
anniversary of George Floyd's
filibustered
death.
it out because it was introduced by a Republican. It was, even though I hate pointing this out, but it was a Black male Republican that introduced that bill. So
The country supports
as
this reform.
much as I hate that it's political, I mean, it ends up being that way a lot of the times by the people who are
We have a giant
speaking right now.
opportunity to
So
bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice, real justice. And with the plans outlined tonight, we have a real chance to root out systemic racism that plagues America and American lives in other ways. A chance to deliver real equity, good jobs, good schools.
yeah, equity
affordable
is not
housing,
compatible with
clean
equality,
air, clean
like
water,
I've been
being able to
saying.
generate wealth and pass it down through generations because you have an access to purchase a house. Real opportunities in the lives of more Americans, Black, white, Latino, Asian Americans, Native Americans. Look, I also want to thank the United States Senate.
So it's socioeconomic.
For
It's
voting
not race.
94 to 1
That's the
to
problem.
pass COVID-19 hate crimes.
They want to say
Act
it's race,
protect
but it's really
Asian American and
socioeconomic.
Pacific Islanders.
And his plans to increase taxes
Decisively.
is going to affect everyone, even though the taxes are coming out of the pockets directly
You can
of
see on
the rich
television the
or the over
viciousness,
400,000
hate
income.
crimes
That does
we've seen
trickle
over the
down,
past
unfortunately.
year, this past year and for too long. I urge the House to do the same and send that legislation to my desk, which I will gladly, anxiously sign. I hope Congress will my desk the Equality Act to protect LGBTQ Americans. For all
Yes,
transgender Americans
but
watching at home, especially
if it
young
removes
people,
rights of parents, that's a
you're so
problem,
brave.
in
I
my
want you to know
opinion.
your president has your back.
But see, they frame
Another thing.
it's obvious.
Let's
A lot of
authorize
times
the
it's
Violence
framed in a
Against Women
bigger
Act, which has been
context
law
or
for
named in a way.
27
So if you
years.
oppose it, you look like you're opposing LGBT community, when in reality you're just protecting,
27
trying to
years
protect
ago, I
parental
wrote.
rights. So
It will close
that's
the act
the
that has to be
politics of it, I
authorized now
guess.
will close the boyfriend loophole. To keep guns out of the hands of abusers. The court order said this is an abuser. You can't own a gun.
they're going to get it anyway. They're going to find a way to get it.
That existed.
So it's better
It's
to
estimated
loosen gun
that
control so that way
50 women
the victim
shot
can
and
arm
killed
themselves and prevent
by
and
an
protect
intimate
themselves
partner
before
every month
the
in
police can
America.
get there, or whoever
50
needs to get there,
month.
if they even call, because they might be afraid to call.
Let's pass it.
That's,
It
to me,
saves
is the
lives.
answer. Because the criminals are going to get the guns one way or another. They're going to make them. They're going to 3D print them. They're going to do whatever they can. They're going to get them off of someone who can legally get
I need
one.
not tell anyone this,
So,
but gun violence is becoming
unfortunately,
an
that's
epidemic.
the reality. So, and
Flag at the
law-abiding
White
people
House
are
will
going to
still
be
find it
deterred from getting
half-mast
guns because they don't want to go through all the
for the 8
steps
victims of the
because
mass
you've made it
shooting in
difficult.
Georgia.
And then the people who don't
When
care
10
about
more
that and are
lives
going to
were
get the
taken
guns
in the mass
anyway are
shooting in
going to have the
Colorado.
leg up
And
and
in the week in between
know that
those two
certain
events,
areas are going to be weaker. So
250 other Americans were shot dead in the streets of America. 250 shot dead.
So technically, I'm not registered
I know
with
how
any
hard it is to
party,
make
you see,
progress
boss,
on
now.
this
As
issue.
of a few months ago,
In
I was a
9/11
registered
passed universal
Republican.
background
My
checks.
policy
A ban
positions
on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines that
currently
hold 100
lean
rounds
right or more
that can be fired
populist
off in
right.
seconds.
I think I'm
We beat the NRA. Mass shootings
on
and
the
gun violence
spectrum.
declined.
I'm
Check out
libertarian
the
right
report
leaning,
on
so
10
I'm pretty moderate, I
In
would
the early
say.
2000s,
I think I'm
the law
fair.
expired.
Obviously, some things
We've
that
seen
people
daily
might think I'm
bloodshed
extreme
since.
on
I'm
or
not saying
whatever.
if the law continued,
But
we wouldn't see bloodshed.
okay, thanks for coming in. Yeah.
More than 2 weeks ago in the
So
Rose Garden,
there's that.
surrounded by some of the bravest people I know, the survivors and families who lost loved ones to gun violence.
So technically, I'm independent.
I laid out
If that makes sense, but I'm not registered as
the
an
Department of
independent.
Justice
I just
actions
prefer
that
not to be part of
taken
party politics. If
impacting
that
this
makes sense
epidemic.
anymore. So
One of them is banning so-called ghost guns. These are homemade guns built from a kit that includes directions how to finish the firearm. The parts have no serial numbers.
How are you going to enforce that?
So they
Like,
show
if
up
you're
in crime
defunding the
scenes,
police and you also
they
want
can't
more
be
gun
traced.
control, I don't understand how
The buyers of these
those
ghost
are
gun
compatible.
kits
Like,
aren't
I don't get
required
it.
to pass
Unless it's
any
just you want
background
police
check.
in that are going to follow everything you say. Maybe that's what it
Anyone
is.
from a criminal or terrorist could buy this kit and within 30 minutes have a weapon that's lethal, but no more. And I'll do everything in my power to protect the American people from this epidemic of gun violence, but it's time for Congress to act as well.
Yep, do your job. But also, there's such thing as states' rights, so we see both happening simultaneously.
I don't want to become confrontational, but we need more Senate Republicans to join the overwhelming majority of Democratic colleagues and close the loopholes required in background check purchases of guns. We need a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
So you
Don't
want
tell me it
loopholes
can't be
closed
done.
for gun
We did it
control,
before and it worked.
but you don't want loopholes for
Talk to most
taxes. Or
responsible
those
gun owners and
are
hunters.
interesting. I
They'll
guess you
tell you
did
there's
say
no
something about
possible
loopholes, but
justification
both are
for having
Congress's
100
job.
rounds
But
in a
unfortunately, if Congress can't agree with it, then it doesn't
Do you
happen.
think deer wearing Kevlar
That's how our
vests?
system is set up. So
And they'll tell you that there are too many people today who are able to buy a gun, but shouldn't be able to buy a gun. These kinds of reasonable reforms.
unfortunately, we have the Second Amendment, which says your right to keep and
bear
bear arms shall not be infringed. So although you may think they shouldn't be allowed to buy a gun, unfortunately, that is a right under the Constitution. So,
and no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
well, it says it. That's one of the few that actually says shall not be infringed.
From the
So,
very beginning, there were certain guns, weapons that could not be owned by Americans. Certain people could not own those weapons ever. We're not changing the Constitution. We're being reasonable. I think this is not a Democrat or Republican
so
issue.
reasonable changes to the Constitution is what you're
And
saying.
here's what else we can do.
Not changes, reasonable changes.
Immigration has always been essential to America. Let's end our exhausting war over immigration. For more than 30 years, politicians have talked about immigration reform, and we've done nothing about it. It's time to fix it. On day one of my presidency, I kept my commitment and sent a comprehensive immigration bill to the United States Congress. If you believe we need to secure the border, pass it because it has a lot of money for high-tech border security.
We already
If you believe
just
in a
finished the
pathway to
wall.
citizenship, pass it.
Do what President
Over
Trump was
11
doing.
million undocumented folks. The
I
vast
know it
majority
hurts
of
to
you
have to admit that he's doing
overstaying
something
visas.
good, but
Pass it.
if you really care about
You can
Americans, then do
actually, if you
it.
actually want to solve a problem, I've sent a bill to take a close look at it.
Oh God, the eye roll of Ted Cruz.
We
Oh no.
also have to get at the root problem of why people are fleeing, particularly to our southern border from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador.
Well, why isn't Kamala
Violence,
visited?
corruption, the
Where,
gangs, the
where
political
she's supposed to be the
instability,
border
hunger,
czar? I
hurricanes,
thought
earthquakes, natural disasters. When
she
I
was
was president,
she was a senator too. Why didn't they
when I was
work on
vice
it then?
president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration. And to help keep people in their own countries instead of being forced to leave. The plan was working, but the last administration decided it was not worth it. I'm restoring the program. I asked Vice President Harris to lead our diplomatic effort to take care of this.
Okay, so
I
go
have
to the
absolute
border,
confidence she'll get the
do
job.
something. Like, that was months ago,
Look.
I think, at this point.
If you don't like my plan, let's at least pass what we all agree on. Congress needs to pass legislation this year to finally secure protection for dreamers. The young
So
people
it's interesting because
only know
they're
America
saying
as
they
their
want
home.
people to come into America, but also they want them to stay in their country. So
And
I don't see how these two things can
permanent protection
work together,
for
or maybe they do want
immigrants
both, but
We're here on temporary protective
it
status.
depends on
who
the
came
day
from
and the way the winds
countries
are blowing,
beset
which
by
one they want
man-made
to
and
support.
natural-made violence and disaster, as well as the pathway to citizenship where farm workers have put
That was a
food
weird
on
clap.
our tables. Look, immigrants have done so much for America during this pandemic and throughout our history. The country supports immigration reform. We should act. Let's argue over it. Let's debate it. But let's act. And if we truly want to restore the soul of America, we need to protect the sacred right to vote. Most people,
Yes, we agree. But how many votes do we each get? That's the question.
more people voted in the last presidential election than any time in American history. In the middle of the worst pandemic ever. It should be celebrated. Instead, it's being attacked. Congress should pass H.R. 1 and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and send it to my desk right
No.
away.
We do not want
The
federalized
country supports
elections.
it, and Congress should act now. Look, in conclusion, as we gather here tonight, the image of a violent mob assaulting this Capitol, desecrating our democracy.
Okay, I think we're wrapping
remain
up
vivid
because
in all our minds.
that's kind of how we started.
Lives were put at risk, many of your lives. Lives were lost.
Right, they
Extraordinary
cared because they
courage
were
was summoned.
directly threatened by it.
The insurrection was an existential crisis, a test of whether our democracy could survive, and it did. But the struggle is far from over. The question of whether our democracy will long endure is both ancient and urgent. As old as our republic, still vital today. Can our democracy deliver on its promise that all of us, created equal in the image of God, had a chance to lead lives of dignity, respect, and possibility? Can our democracy deliver the most pressing needs of our people? Can our democracy overcome the lies, anger, hate, and fears that have pulled us apart? America's adversaries, the autocrats of the world, are betting we can't. And I promise you, they're betting we can't. They believe we're too full of anger and division and rage. They look at the images of the mob that assaulted the Capitol as proof that the sun is setting on American democracy. But they're wrong. You know it, I know it. But we have to prove them wrong. We have to prove democracy still works, that our government still works, and we can deliver for our people. In our first 100 days together, we've acted to restore people's faith in democracy to deliver. We're vaccinating the nation.
We're a republic, not a democracy.
Thousands of new jobs.
Making that
We're
clear.
delivering real results to people. They can see it, feel it in their own lives. Opening doors of opportunity, guaranteeing some more fairness and justice. That's the essence of America. That's democracy in action. Our Constitution opens with the words, as trite as it sounds, we the people. Well, it's time to remember that we the people are the government. You and I. Not some force in a distant capital. Not
Right.
some
We have
powerful force that we have no
officials who
control
represent
over.
us and
It's
get their power
us.
from us, the elected,
It's
the
we,
people
the
who elect them.
people. In another era, when our democracy was tested, Franklin Roosevelt reminded us in America, we do our part. We all do our part. That's all I'm asking, that we do our part, all of us. If we do that, we will meet the center challenge of the age by proving that democracy is durable and strong.
But even if you do your part, sometimes it
Autocrats
doesn't
will
work
not
out in
win
your
the
favor.
future.
That's
We will.
the
America
bad and the
will.
good of the system.
And the
So
future belongs to America. As I stand here tonight before you in a new and vital hour of life and democracy of our nation, and I can say with absolute confidence, I have never been more confident or optimistic about America. Not because I'm president, because of what's happening with the American people.
it's true.
We've
If we
stared
survive
into the
2020, I
abyss
mean,
of insurrection
can
and autocracy,
survive anything.
pandemic and pain, and we, the people, did not flinch.
I don't know about that.
The very moment our adversaries
We were
were
close.
certain we'd pull apart and fail, we came together, we united. With light and hope, we summoned a new strength, new resolve to position us to win the competition of the 21st century. On our way to a union more perfect, more prosperous, and more just, as one people, one nation, and one America.
Under God, indivisible,
Folks,
liberty and justice for
I
all.
told every world leader I've ever met with over the years, it's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America, and it still isn't.
That's true.
We're the United States of America. There's not a single thing, nothing beyond our capacity. We can do whatever we set our minds to if we do it together. So let's begin to get together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, let's do it. Let's come together. Let's see if Congress can follow the lead set by the president. All right.
President Joe Biden giving his
Let's
first address to a joint session
turn
of Congress.
them off, and let's go here. I'm going to give a few thoughts that I had that I didn't get to share during this because I didn't want to interrupt too long. But let's see here. So what did you think? Let me know in the comments if you're still here, if you've just joined. I know some people had to leave a little early. But one thing I wanted to talk about was the President Biden talking about the biggest mobilization for the vaccine, which I thought was, yes, I think objectively most people would say that is true. However, if the unity message is really what they want to push, you have to give credit, some of that credit, to Trump, the Trump administration, and everyone who was working during the Trump administration and is still working during the Biden administration, credit for that. And I think he kind of did that without directly saying President Trump's name, but I think that is important for unity, if you're really thinking about that, to acknowledge those two things. Now, as far as the jobs numbers go, yes, I think it's great that more people are getting jobs, of course, but that also it's impressive, but to have the biggest jobs growth now, but when you're coming off of lockdowns and a pandemic, and then you start opening things up, the natural thing, hopefully, is job growth. And then the timing of that with the stimulus checks, I think, is the perfect storm for that growth. So I think that's awesome that he is, under his presidency, there is the biggest gain in jobs or the biggest growth in jobs ever. But you have to take into context that we just came off of a really bad year based on lockdowns that are now easing. So I understand that the politics of it probably prevents him from actually acknowledging that, but in the name of unity, I'm going to say it on his behalf. And as far as stimulus checks go, yes, I think, of course, it's helping people who need a little extra help before they can get back on their feet because of the pandemic response, and things loosening up finally. But that, to me, is not sustainable because that money has to be derived from somewhere, or someone has to create that value that is now turned into currency. So I don't think it's sustainable, but I think it is an accomplishment. But when I think about the amount of money that they sent via stimulus checks the past year, I think it's been, let's see, 1,400, 600, and what, 1,600 maybe. So maybe 3,000, a little over 3,000 at the most, maybe. That is not enough for someone who doesn't have an income. So, and think about how much money that was added to our spending, and that was a lot, and that is not sustainable monthly. And so I get why the stimulus checks were sent out and why and that they did help, but yeah, it's not sustainable. So okay. And then my last thing was actually a comment by Doreen about Dr. Jill Biden and why people were kind of making fun of her for using the term doctor, which I thought that whole story was kind of dumb. The only thing I thought that was funny about that was when Whoopi Goldberg thought for some reason that Jill was a medical doctor and was advocating for her to be Surgeon General. Maybe just something she didn't realize or was kind of ignorant about. But I thought that was interesting when she did that. When was that? When he was running when they were still in the campaign, I think. And if she earned the term doctor from her PhD, I mean, why can't she use it, right? So I thought that was one more thing. So any other thoughts, leave them in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, leave them in the comments as well. I will get back to you as I see them. And with that said, I'm going to wrap up here. Thank you so much for joining me for this news chat live. This is the second one. And if I ever go live, it'll be either at noon or 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time now, which is 3 and 9 Eastern, depending on what's going on. Don't really have a set day schedule, but I will let you know via my email list, which you can sign up for free by going to the About section of this YouTube channel, and it'll have directions on how to do that. It's basically 2 steps. You go to my website, nickzengel.com, and put in an email and a first name, and then go to the confirmation email, click the red button that says, yes, subscribe me to this list, and I will send you email updates when I'm about to go live or when I have segments that from my lives that I post and whatnot. So, and it'll have all my links to all the platforms that I'm on those emails as well. So make sure to do that. And if you don't have anything else, thank you so much once again for joining me, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye-bye.